Brilliant. Oh, dear me. Now, we need a bit of interaction this morning. Yes, I know. I'm practicing. I'm back in school tomorrow. I don't think teachers get enough time off, but anyway, that's my own thing. We deserve an extra week at least. So you need to make sure you're sitting near someone. Yeah, I'm looking at the front row. You need to make sure, and Rebecca. So Beck, you can go that way a bit. So you need to just be. You need to be sure so you can chat to someone. That's it. Not when I'm speaking, because that's not allowed. Fingers on lips. No, but you need to be sure you can conflab a little bit, okay? Because we've been a bit interactive. Sandra can lean. Look to Murray. See, we got that. It's all right. A chair apart is fine. A chair apart is fine. You know. And can I just say, no sitting on laps, inappropriate. But a chair apart is fine. We went to. I had a training course in school on Friday. And my head teacher is very proper. He doesn't like any fuss. Like whenever you have staff dues, he doesn't dance. When we do dressing up days, he doesn't dress up. He's just, that's it. He doesn't like any fuss and everything like that. And we had this guest speaker in who was an Essen inspector and a lunatic, basically. He used to be a head teacher of a school up in Brinhaman and all this and the other. And about 5 minutes into the thing, and of course, we all know our head teacher, and we know this about him. And about 5 minutes into the talk, I think he was he was one of these guys who I don't like them myself. Extrovert, charismatic, it's not. and basically, he at one point, to make a point about Esting getting up personal in your face, I was looking at you, I thought I was going to demonstrate them, but I would feel as uncomfortable as you. He actually sat on our head teacher's lap and put his nose against his nose and said, "This is how close they get." And we all went, "Oh no, no, read the room." That moment you go, "No, you don't know him like why, no." And fair play, he took it in good, he was okay, he took it well and everything like that, but we were all thinking after, well, he won't come back. And, but that was quite funny. Anyway, yes, so you're going to have a bit of chatting. So can I just as well, loving the clock? Yes. Excellent, looks like something from Downton Abbey. It's huge and ornate, I love it, okay? I felt like I was preaching a Chatsworth house, a couple of pillars and a column now, it's great, we're away. So, more tea, my lord. So anyway, Ethan is going to, it's been one of those weeks. Ethan is going to put a little video clip up for us. This is why you need to be near someone, okay? Because what I would like you to do, you're going to watch the video clip in a moment. Don't press play yet, because it literally starts, okay? When it starts. So you're going to watch the video clip, okay? And I want you to, it's a kid's clip, by the way, it's all right, it's cool, it's a cartoon. We all love a cartoon. It's not Thundercats, by the way, or He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, okay? We toned it down. So what I'm going to do is look, and I'm going to give you a minute, then-ish, to talk to the person who you can talk to, those nearby, or just chat them, and you tell them what was to you, and it'll all be different, but there's no right or wrong answer with this, okay? Or so he tells them. No, and there isn't. And I want you to tell the person next to you, or discuss the person next to you, what you thought was the key part of that video. What do you think was the main point? It's a Bible story, okay? What was the main point in it? What is it that stuck out in your head about the entire thing you watched? Just to clarify, because it's part of another series, a robot appears and two children dressed in modern day clothes. That's not the main point. I'm not trying to catch you out. They just appear at the end because it's this Bible story series about these guys who go back in time and see Bible stories. So don't ignore them. Look at the Bible story. Okay? Right.
Son of David, have mercy on me.
Jesus doesn't concern you.
You're blind, beggar. Move. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Son of David, have mercy on me!
Tell him to come here.
Be of good cheer. Rise. He is calling you.
T-robot, ignore them.
What do you want me to do for you?
Rabbi, that I may receive my sight.
Go your way. Your faith has made you well.
I can see. Thank you, teacher. I can see.
Jesus didn't even have to touch him to heal his sight.
Good there. Now, I looked at hundreds of those last night, of different versions from the Chosen and all that like that. That is actually the closest one to what it actually says in Mark's Gospel. That is spot on. There are little details they put in there, okay, that is closer. So, talk to each other. Oh, we don't know, we're not supposed to do this in church. What is it? And there's no right or wrong. Just say, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think was the most important part to you? What stood out? Okay, can I stop you there? That was lovely. Wow, you look stupid. We had a little thinking group at the back, the guys, sofaing along. It was like watching someone trying to split the atom. It was proper talking there, discussing. And there were people thinking, and some people were doing that nod. And all they were thinking about was the chicken. No, that nod that they do, right. Okay, excellent. Anyone want to throw out what came? You don't have to, it's not compulsory. Anyone want to throw, and genuinely, there's no right or wrong. What stood out to you? Anyone want to? Sorry? The robot. Let's close in prayer. Lord, we thank you for Gary and his input this morning. No. What stood out? What do you think? Beggar asked for help and the assistance, yeah? Or persistence, sorry, the persistence. Okay, interest. Casting aside his cloak, and you said that, yeah?
Jesus told him to come to him, whereas being blind, you thought Jesus would have gone.
Interesting there, yeah. Jesus said, come to me, yeah, okay. Anything else? Go expecting something. Have you been reading my notes? Thank you. Go expecting something. When you saw the rest of you as well. Go expect something. He asked and he received. Okay, it's lots of, and that is genuinely so close to the Bible passage in Mark. Okay, let's read. Let's go to Mark 10, verse 46 to 52. By the way, we're going to be speaking this morning on blind Bartimaeus. And while you find Mark 10 in your phones, that takes 30 seconds. In your Bible, it should take about 40 seconds because it's only that, it's in the Gospels, easy to find. And the reason we came to this is that because I have a thing. It's not road rage. It's more I get displeased with other drivers who can't drive properly. And that's not, I feel I'm doing them a favor by shouting instructions on how to drive out the window. I see myself more as an advanced driving instructor. Why are you not signaling? Anyway, so one of my favorite sayings as we're following people down the road through Birch Grove is, who's driving the car in front? Blind Bartimaeus, is it? That's one of my favorites. I like that, yeah. And we were doing that. That came up the other day, didn't it, Ethan? And Ethan went, ooh, blind Bartimaeus. I know about him. So we got talking about him. And that's why we're talking about this morning, because I got thinking about it. And I thought, after discussing the story and everything like that, I actually went back and went on to read it and start to study it. And it's a corker. In fact, fast becoming my favorite miracle story in the Bible, up there with all the others. So, Mark chapter 10, and it says, starting from verse 46, then they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, that is, son of Timaeus, was sitting on the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more. That's the persistence thing we talk about. Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus stopped and said, call him. So they called to the blind man, cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you. Throwing his cloak aside, now we've heard that, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. And if you notice right at the very end, they even showed that bit. They even showed him joining the crowd at the end, which I thought was a really nice touch. So he's really close to the passage. So we're going to do a bit of interaction, and it's not so much a preach this morning as it is a Bible study with some musings of life thrown in. What really interested me this morning is Pastor Colin, when you were encouraging us after Delara gave that phenomenal testimony. And I wasn't screaming as much because I was processing all these thoughts. Because you said something, we don't see what God is doing. And it's interesting, and that'll come in a moment. So feel free to not shout out anything, but, answers when I say. So let's all do a corporate. What healed Bartimaeus? Faith. He says it at the end of it. It says, Jesus actually says, "Go, your faith has healed you." So what we're really looking at here in this entire story is a story of faith. Okay? It's a working out of faith. And when you look more into, and this is kind of the Bible study sort of bit of it, when we look more into the story of Bartimaeus in Mark's Gospel, let me do a little bit of background, rewind that for a minute. Mark's Gospel, the 4 Gospels, I don't know if you know your background of your New Testament, your 4 Gospels are written to particular groups of people. Okay, the writers, they're all writing about Jesus. Okay? But they're all writing because, like good preachers, writers, whatever, teachers, whatever you want to call these guys, okay, they know their audience. And they're writing for a particular audience. When I go to school tomorrow morning, I won't be talking like this to my children I teach. Because I recognize the audience, and this is what these guys are doing. Okay? So, you got Matthew. Matthew is very much to the Jews, and he's very much writing very proper synagogue type language, that sort of thing. That's his background. Okay, so he's telling the same story. He's not made up a completely different version of Jesus. That's why some of the stories of Jesus appear in all of the Gospels. Some appear in only one of the Gospels. Some appear in 3 of the Gospels. And all this. So you got Matthew is writing to that sort of characters. Mark, well, I'll come to Mark at the end. Luke is a doctor. Luke is very, proper. Luke wants the details. He wants the, as Dragnet was there, just the facts, man. That's Luke. Luke wants the facts. He records them. Boom, boom, boom. This happened, this, and that's Luke. Okay. John is just because John is writing, there was like a cult, a religious cult around the time called the Gnostic religion, and John is writing to combat that. John wants to show Jesus. John is showing Jesus as the Son of God. It's interesting, for instance, John doesn't have someone carrying Jesus' cross. If you ever read that. The other Gospels have sight. John doesn't, because no one carries Jesus' cross. He did, but he doesn't want to put that detail in because he was showing Jesus, the Son of God. That's what he was writing for. Okay. Then we get to Mark, which is my favorite of the Gospels, yes, obviously. But Mark is gritty. Mark is the common man. Mark is the guy we would go and meet in the cafe, not down the pub, in the cafe for a coffee. Okay. Mark is that sort of guy. You bump into the fish and chip shop, and Mark will tell you, you never guess what happened today. And he was a bit obsessed by demons as well. And he was into it. He wanted the grittiness. He wanted to get into it. He wanted to tell you, warts and all, this is what happened. Okay? And in all that background, the story of Bartimaeus it's actually one of the most important miracle stories in the whole Gospel of Mark. And Mark's got a lot. Okay? And mainly because it's got a lot of firsts in it. Okay? There's a lot of things that happen first. For instance, his very cry, and which is why I said, start it right from the beginning. Well, you tell me. What did Bartimaeus call out to Jesus? Son of David. That's the only time that's mentioned in all of Mark's Gospel. The only person that recognized Jesus as the Son of David was a blind man. That's what struck me when you said this morning about sometimes we don't see what Jesus is doing. Sometimes we don't even see who Jesus is. The call, the title, and remember you did a series on the titles of Jesus, didn't you? That was, and I was challenged to find a song for each one. No, and was that lockdown? I think it was. I was locked up. We did some of them on, I'm sure you did. Some of them you did on video, I remember. Zoom, yeah. Anyway, so, Son of David. Now to have that cry, that's referring, that's calling out the royal lineage of Jesus. He was of the line of David. You know, David was the king. He was the one that all the Jews would have, remembered. David, King David. Slays Goliath, king, he's the one, isn't he? There were lots of kings of Israel, but he's the one type thing. Okay? And Bartimaeus, in his blindness, acknowledges the royalty of Christ. That's something. He knows who Jesus is. He knows who he was. In that one statement, he says, this is the royal line of David. He can't even see the man, but he grasps more than all the other people around him. Because what were they doing? Shut up. And he's then, in his blindness, he knew the royal nature of Jesus, who, remember, not long after is crucified as King of the Jews. And Bartimaeus, I've changed his name, Bartimaeus, almost in that prophetic cry, he announces to all the crowds, because there was a crowd following, it says as they left Jericho, in a crowd, he announces, this blind beggar by the side of the road announces, royal blood, have mercy on me. Son of David, have mercy on me. In his blindness, Bartimaeus saw more than the people could see. And later on, this becomes a little bit more apparent later on in the story. Can I ask, as challenged by Pastor Colin this morning, what eyes are you using in your life at the moment? What are you looking at? What do you see? What do your eyes see? What do you see when you're sitting on the side of the road and Jesus walks past? Do you even notice that Jesus is walking past? Or have you missed that as well? Imagine if Bartimaeus had sat there in his blindness and had not started crying out, Son of David, have mercy on me. He wouldn't have left healed, would he? What are your eyes seeing? Do you see Jesus? Who is he to you? Who is he? Is he Son of David? Who is he? Is he your healer? Is he your savior? Can he break the chains? We sang songs this morning about he breaks the chains. Fear doesn't have a hold on us. We heard about him being our peace and all these sort of things this morning. What do you see? What do you see? Sometimes not seeing is actually more believing than seeing. Because in his blindness, Bartimaeus sees more. And I want to just, my first musing of this morning, my first kind of challenge of this morning, is sometimes knock off your natural eyes. Close them in your situation. Close the eyes of perceived reality. And see Jesus in everything. See Jesus when you wake up in the morning. See Jesus when you walk to work. See Jesus when the storms come and everything. See Jesus. Son of David, have mercy on me. See Jesus. We had, sorry, Lara, you came up here, I'm going to refer to you a lot now this morning. We had a wonderful testimony this morning. And what did Julie say and Delara say? Glory to God. Delara didn't see her answer to this situation in a text message or the passage of time or two friends who said, oh, why didn't you do this? No. The answer was they saw Jesus. See Jesus. He is the one who delivers us. He is the one who encourages us. Rebecca put that thing on this week, and I won't go through the story again about how we turned up at Matthew's house on a day we shouldn't have turned up at Matthew's house, and major gas leak. And they wouldn't have known. And the gas board said, someone walked by here with a cigarette, and the whole house sort of, front of the house sort of. Now we could say, wow, weren't you lucky we turned up that night? It's all right, wasn't it? Weren't you lucky that Beck's got a better sense of smell than me, because I would have walked straight past. It was her who went, I can smell gas. And then when I stuck my head in the meter and went, woo, I thought, oh yeah, that is too. That was lucky, wasn't it? No. See Jesus. See the deliverance of God. And the encouragement that comes from all that is sometimes we don't even see what he's protecting us from. But as Pastor Colin encouraged us this morning, see him in the little things. The fact you got food tomorrow, Jesus. The fact you got a roof over your head tomorrow, Jesus. The fact you're in this meeting this morning, Jesus. The fact you're alive, Jesus. Okay, I'll move on. I made my point. See Jesus. Okay, really quickly. Now, off to you now. You're going to work again. I'm going to say, I love this. This is great. Sit back sermons, we're going to call them. I literally just made that up. Oh, I could nick that. I'm going to patent that. Sit back sermons, where the preacher asks a question and sits back. No, right. So there's a few other miracles in Mark, okay? Now, what I was going to do was get you to read them, but time is going. First of the month, forgot about communion. If I give you a little bit of the story, okay, of these miracles, you can jot them down if you've got a notepad and you can read them yourself. But I'm going to read you 5 other miracles in Mark, and they all have something in common, okay? The first one is Mark 2, verse 4. Now, I'm not going to read it, but if I paraphrase what happens in it, okay, and then you're going to talk to your partner, and you're going to... Oh, you don't like me already. You're going to talk to your partner, and you're going to discuss what these got in common, okay? So the first one, Mark 2, verse 4, it's a story of the healing of the paralytic, where the guys and his friends, okay? And I want you to focus on this bit. Some men came bringing to him a paralytic, carried by 4 of them. Since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus, and after digging through it, lowered the mat the paralyzed man was lying on. And so on, and we got he's lowered down, everything like that. So that's the first little bit, okay? So hold that in your head. Then we're going to jump to Mark, we're all in Mark, sorry. Mark 5, verse 27. Okay, Mark 5, verse 27 is the woman with the issue of blood, okay? And it says, 27, it says, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his coat, okay? So we got that one. We got that idea, you know, the story when there's all crowds on Jesus and she pushes her way through and she gets to Jesus and touches his coat. Okay, fantastic. Then we carry on in Mark 5 because then we go to the story of Jairus' daughter, okay, who Jesus was on his way to go to when he paused because he healed the woman with the issue of blood. Okay, so Mark 5 verse 35 to 36, it says, while Jesus was still speaking, some of the men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? Ignoring what they said, Jesus told the synagogue ruler, don't be afraid, just believe. So we got that bit. Okay? Then we're going to go, this is hard work, isn't it? Then we're going to go to Mark 7, verse 27. Okay? Mark 7, verse 27. And it's the story. This is a really interesting one, this one is. Read this, study this, okay? It's the faith of the Syrophoenician woman. Okay? And the idea is basically, you've got, Jesus is in this house, and this woman comes to his daughter who's possessed by evil spirits. See, I told you Mark's obsessed by evil spirits, okay? It was evil spirit. And the woman was Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. And Jesus really strangely says to her, he said, well, first, he doesn't just go, okay. It's an interesting one, okay? He says, first let the children eat all they want, he said, for it is not right to take the dog's bread and toss it to the children's bread and toss to the dogs. What he was saying basically is, to paraphrase and to explain it to you, he's saying, you're not a Jew. Okay? And actually the dogs was a slanderous remark the Jews would make against people who weren't Jews. So he's basically saying, why should I give you bread? It's not for you. And then she says, yes, but even the dogs can have the crumbs. So what she's saying is, I'll take what you can give me. Yeah? I'm really, really paraphrasing it for the sake of time. Jesus basically says, well, why should I give you? And he said, look, she said, I'll take what you got. My daughter's ill. I'll take everything. I'll take a crumb. As Ben spoke a while ago about a mustard seed, faith, yeah? She said, I'll take a crumb. That's good enough for me. Okay, before I give away the answer. And the last one is 9 verse 18. 9 verse 18, where we've got the boy with an evil spirit is brought, and he's brought to the disciples first, and the disciples have trouble. They can't cast the demon out. Okay, or the spirit out. It says, whenever he sees them, he throws him to the ground, he foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not. The miracles of Mark, a Bible study by Craig. Right, so, different stories there. Literally, for the sake of time, 1 minute again. What do you think they all have in common? Okay? What do they all have in common? And I'm going to just preempt what Gary just shouted out. And the answer I'm looking for is not faith. Although they do have faith in common. They do have faith in common. But not faith. That's not your answer you're looking for. The third one was Jairus' daughter. So we've got the guy being lowered through the roof. We've got the woman pushing through the crowd. I'm trying to give you hints here. We've got Jairus' daughter who died before Jesus got there. You've got the Syrophoenician woman who was refused by Jesus at first but wants the crumbs. And you've got the last one, which is the guy who takes his son to Jesus, and the disciples can't cast the demon out. I'll give you a little bit of a clue there because because I'm a kind preacher. And Bartimaeus actually follows the same pattern. Bartimaeus has the same thing in common. Otherwise it'd be pointless me saying this. See, you're not so chatty now, are you? You're thinking. Ooh. And there is a right answer to this, sort of, because otherwise my entire sermon falls on his face. So. What do we think, then? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Anyone brave enough? Desperation? Faith? Perseverance? Complete trust? All good stuff. Not the answer, though. But all good stuff. They all went to Jesus. No? Ooh. Okay. Let me say it this way, see if you can work it out then. What was between the man, paralytic man, and Jesus? A roof. What was between the woman with the issue of the blood and Jesus? Crowd. What was between Jairus' daughter and Jesus? Distance and death. She died. What was between the Syrophoenician woman and Jesus being healed? Religion, culture, Jesus himself to a certain degree. And what was between, what was the last one? Thank you. The boy with the evil spirit and Jesus. The demon and the disciples. The disciples had failed, didn't they? Okay? And Bartimaeus, it was people telling him. Basically, they all had to overcome something, an obstacle to their faith. Every one of those miracles had an obstacle to the faith. It was a roof, it was a crowd, it was time and death that Jesus hadn't got there allegedly on time. It was the fact that Jesus was challenging the entire culture of the day. Oh yeah, I'm not giving you this. Yeah, but I'll take a crumb. It was the fact that the disciples had tried and failed. At any of those points, those people could have walked away. Think about it. The guys could have gone up to the house with a guy in a stretcher, seen the crowds, and not even thought about the roof. Thought, nope, too busy, we'll bring it back tomorrow. Okay? The woman could have gone, bleeding for however many years, crowd, can't push my way through there. If I touch people, I'm unclean. I could get stoned. all those things. She took a massive faith step pushing through a crowd and touching people when she was unclean to Jewish laws. Okay? Jairus' daughter, they come up, don't bother now, Jesus, she's dead. The Syrophoenician woman, Jesus says, well, I can't give you the bread. Okay, sorry to bother you. Disciples try casting the demon. The guy could have not gone to Jesus. He could have thought, well, they had a go, didn't they? And Bartimaeus could have stopped when that first person said, shut up. They all had to overcome obstacles in their faith. See, Bartimaeus was a blind beggar. He was socially low. Everyone there probably thought he deserved it. So don't bother him. Be quiet. Why are you calling out to Jesus? You don't mess with people like you. Clearly, the guys hadn't heard all the other stories in Mark's gospel at that point, that Jesus used to mess with people like them and heal them. No, don't bother him. Don't bother him. But as Donna, I think, was said about perseverance earlier on, what was Bartimaeus' answer to this? He shouted louder. He's one of those annoying people that when you say don't do that, they do it more. I'm thinking of my children. No, but you know, when you sort of think, oh, you know, just don't say, no, shush now. Shush, don't spoil it. Don't make a scene. Don't make a fuss. But he was so desperate that would come up. He was so persuaded, and I'm going to go a little bit, he expected something to happen. He knew Jesus was his answer. He'd already acknowledged the royalty of this man who was walking past him in his blindness, and he just tried, and he said, I'm not being quiet for you lot. To be fair, you couldn't see them anyway. I'm going to shout a bit louder so he hears me. And he shouts, and he shouts, and he shouts. My next musing, can I just say, sometimes we got to shout a little bit louder in our faith. There are obstacles to overcoming faith. Faith, a grain of a mustard seed, will move mountains. But sometimes there are obstacles that come in the way. Whether it be obstacles in our life, in our thinking, in our advice we've heard of other people, in the books we've read, in the social media things we've looked at, and these obstacles come in our way, and suddenly we meet a crowd and think, oh, well, I'll try again tomorrow, God. Or we see a roof and say, ooh, that's a bit hard. Or we get challenged, well, you know, should you really be saying that? Are you actually part of God? You know, because aren't you a dog? God, you know, shouldn't you? And we get lost in all these things. And it's an obstacle that needs to be overcome. You see, God's not deaf. But sometimes he wants to hear how serious we are. Can I challenge you this morning if you've been praying for something? You don't have to literally shout because God can't hear you. He wants you to raise your voice a bit because he wants to know how serious you are about getting this answer. Are you willing to break through a roof this morning? Are you willing to push through a crowd and risk being stoned? Are you willing to challenge the Son of God himself and say, I'll take a crumb. I'll take whatever you got, Jesus. Are you willing to say, okay, other people have tried this. I've gone to this preacher. I've gone to that preacher. I've taken him to the disciples. They failed. I've read the books. I've done everything like that. You do something now, Jesus. Shout a bit louder in your faith. Make a noise. Show God how serious you are about wanting an answer in your life. Get on your knees and ask him. And ask him. And when you don't get the answer, shout a bit louder. Then really quickly moving on, really quickly, promise. The true show of faith, which is the one that a few people picked up on. And that's why I love this. They showed him leaving his cloak, didn't they? It actually says in the Bible, he tossed the cloak to one side. And that was interesting. I was reading one commentary on this, and they said, that's a brave thing for a blind person to do. And he wasn't being flippant, because when you're blind, you tend to keep things close. He threw his cloak away. He wasn't going back to it. As you said this morning, he was expecting. That's what I've written down. He expected to change. He wasn't going back to that cloak. That cloak was his livelihood. He would have, you know, that pattern of he would have come down, put it down, sat there. That was his pattern of the day. Those things, he was a beggar. He didn't have things to throw away. And yet, he tossed his cloak away because he knew he wasn't coming back to it. That's faith. That's when you know Bartimaeus' faith. He knew when he got up there and when he had that call. And I love the fact that Jesus said, bring him to me. He said to people who come, yeah. And it was almost like, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this. You know, people who have been saying, oh, he doesn't want to see you, he doesn't want to see you. And Jesus says, go and get him. was like, in your face, I do. You know what I mean? And maybe the people who've been saying, oh, be quiet, were the ones who had to go, all right, sorry, Lord, and pick him up and take him along. I don't know. That's me thinking. But he knew when he left and when he was on his way to Jesus, he wasn't coming back to that old way of life. His life was going to change. What are you expecting for this morning? Are you expecting to change? Or is this just another sermon? How many times have you got to hear God's word into our lives? How many times have I got to hear God's word into my life before I actually change something about it? Look, talking to this guy on Friday about Esther and all this and other. The main thing now, all inspections, all education, everything, because they change it all every week, but everything they're doing at the moment now is about value added. I have to show by the end of the year that whatever level the children were on when they reached me in this, tomorrow, they have to have changed by July. They have to have made progress. They have to, otherwise I'll be held accountable. Literally, that's what it's like. It's all about value added. It's whatever level someone's on, have you added something to their life? Have you changed? Have you made progress in your faith? Are you expecting God to speak to you this morning, pick you up, shake you off, and launch you into your life a victor? Or are you going to look at your feet all the way home? Well, he was funny, wasn't he? Yeah? Have you changed? Bartimaeus tossed his cloak to one side because he said, I'm not going back to that. I'm a new man. You haven't been healed yet. I am a new man. I'm meeting with the Son of David. You're allowed to be excited. It's very good. Okay. Just quickly. Bartimaeus started this entire journey with the Greek word para, the road, alongside the road. This entire story. He ended, and the Greek word is en, on the road. He went from being a sidelined onlooker to following Jesus. That's what I loved about that cartoon. To following Jesus. He made that transition. You know, earlier on in the passage, and that's what's really interesting, that when Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? Do you know, he said exactly the same question a few verses earlier to James and John. Their response was, well, I want to sit your right hand and your left hand, and, we want a bit of honor. We want a bit of power. We want people to notice us. What did Bartimaeus say? I just want to see. Just want to see. Funny enough, he had the answer right, didn't he? He had more sight than the disciples. But he ended up being miraculously healed. And then Jesus says, go. And he went, no, I'd rather follow you. And he ended up on the journey. Mark uses that term, the journey, quite interchangeably with meaning Jesus' journey to the cross. So there's every most commentators believe that the Bartimaeus followed him to the cross. Because there's that inference, that use of language there is, he followed him on his journey, on his road. And Jesus was well on his road to the cross at this point, in Mark's gospel. He went from being a sitter on the side of the road to on the journey to the cross with Jesus. Did you come here this morning, para, alongside? Maybe the change you're looking for this morning is that we need to be on the journey. That's our journey. Take up your cross and follow me. That's what Jesus actually said. Take up your cross and follow me. Are you ready to get off the side of the road, acknowledge the royalty of Christ, overcome all these obstacles that life throws us about our faith, expect to be miraculously changed by Christ, and then follow him on the journey? Let's just pray. Lord, we want to thank you right at Rather start this prayer, Lord, I want to thank you for the testimony we've heard this morning. Lord, we praise God that in this we see Jesus. Not man, we see Jesus. So we thank you for that restoration, Lord. Lord, I just want to pray this morning as we've looked at this gospel this morning, looked at this story, that it will become so much more in our reality. The Lord, that we will realize who you are, that we will expect, that we will overcome, that we will persevere, that we will be determined, and that we will join you on the journey that you have set for us. Lord, you have a purpose and a plan for each one of us. It's not enough for us to be sitting alongside the road, watching you go by, missing the complete point of everything. It's time to join you. It's time to change, and it's time to join you. Lord, I pray this for each individual here this morning. Amen.